Hey there, welcome back. First time I heard of this, I was not paying much attention to it, although the potential future blockade to it was clear to me at that point. But the one who asked of this question first, I briefly explained this to them with the expectation that they get it, and since then it was never thought of. After that, another question relating to this was asked, which is basically when people have issue recording their financing statement on a county level. That thing called financing statement is a statement of accounting that tabulates who a creditor is, who a debtor is, and demonstrate the particular transaction based on the agreement that established the creditor-debtor relationship. We went over that as to the basics of what UCC 1 constitute in this video. When you go on some website and get a surety bond, now keep in mind there are many different types of bonds, and apparently people are getting a surety bond as a way just to provide along with the financing statement so that whoever is in the forefront can be familiar with whatever seems to appear as something relating to finance and accounting. While that works for some people immediately, you have to recall the initial purpose of you doing so. Primarily, it is for the purpose of separating trust and contract interest. Consequently, because of that primary reason, you will be able to utilize any properties or collateral that's within the collateral section of that UCC financing statement right here where it says collateral. Whatever you put here, you have the ability, and when I say you, I mean whoever the alleged secure party to which that collateral is being given to as a substitute in case a performance cannot be met by the debtor. You'll be using that collateral as a way to compensate yourself in said circumstance. If you are the one who the creditor has decided to place the collateral in hand with by consent of the debtor based on the operating agreement or whatever type of contract that calls you to now tabulate the creditor-debtor relationship onto this tool called UCC 1 form, aka UCC financing statement. So if people are being denied this form on a county level and then are subsequently deciding to go get a bond to place as an attachment to this, remember, attachment is a financial term. It's not just something that says, hey, look, I added this to this piece of paper. Attachment is a substitute word for an allonge. An allonge is always directly related to interest of something. And when you're dealing with financial forms like this, everything you list relating to the names, the positions, and whatever type of bond, aka debt, or stock, aka equity, that you intend to push using this form, that bond that you are creating from a third party attached to whatever your contract is, if you read the terms and conditions to which they should give it to you, you're binding yourself to the company issuing that bond. If you read the terms and conditions to which they should give it to you, you're binding yourself to the company issuing that bond. If you read the terms and conditions to which they should give it to you, you're binding yourself to the company issuing that bond. So in the future, if you want to do anything sophisticated with this, along the line of what many people want to do, where they say they're going after the birth certificate, you do know that that bond and the one who issued it, there's something called a severe liability. Severe liability refers to a type of liability system. There are different types of liabilities, and there's a system to it. There's a systematic method that it's used, that court uses to allocate. Allocation relates to monies. We've went over that in the case audit video on Patreon, these 2-part videos. Responsibilities. What responsibilities? It's financial related. For damages, damages is monies when it comes to claims asserted against someone. Are you seeing what's going on here? Damage is the tort or act performed against you that gave rise to your claim. Damages with an S is monetary liability. Severe liability refers to a type of liability system that courts use to allocate responsibility, meaning you become the responsible party. For damages, responsible party. For monetary liabilities in tort cases with multiple negligent parties. In other words, severe liability triggers when there are more than one parties deemed to have neglected a duty and performance. This form that you're looking at here is one of the forms that's used to enforce and anchor. It's used to stabilize and secure, aka there's a secure party, aka anchor, a responsibility towards that secure party or whoever wants to later claim whatever is used as a collateral by the creditor within this form. The moment that you get a third party to issue a bond for you outside of a system or infrastructure that you control, because that's how this whole thing works. If you really want to be in control, the infrastructure has to be founded and created by you. That whatever bond people are getting just to add to this so that it could be easily filed now, they're forgetting the future. Because if those people see that you've added the bond that they have created, and either name of these parties or whatever papers, which usually is the birth certificate that's been authenticated or whatever else people are doing are adding as collateral, if they see it has value and you add them into it, you just voluntarily brought in a third party into a circumstance you don't want them to without conditions that favor you. You are opening yourself up to a takeover. So sure, you might be able to use that bond and give it to the county so you can file it now. So the gratification of being able to do it now. But in the future, as you gradually do things, even with the IRS, and they start seeing the name of the trust, it can be pierced. If you look at the qualifying factor of several liability, it's based on courts. And the concept of court test and control test, that you've done all the troubles and effort into creating the structure of your express trust that is likely and ought to be the secure party here. You've just waived it by voluntarily bringing a third party, a mole, into your organization voluntarily. So now let's just say you want to retroactively now amend it and remove it. You do know that the moment this is done on a counter level, any party or any bond that's attached to it, they will contact those people on the back end. You do know that the moment this is done on a counter level, any party or any bond that's attached to it, they will contact those people on the back end. And those bonds themselves that you're getting, that you're attaching to this, just for the purpose of you quickly being able to file it because the employees in a recorder will easily accept it. Those bonds themselves that you're getting, do you know what they're doing with it when they're creating it? When they're writing the name of your parties or interested party relating to you on those bonds? Because they're securitizing it also. What relationship do you have to securitization of those bonds? When in truth, you're filing a UCC financing statement to be able to control your own securitization so you can get some type of equity stake into it. When it comes to the world of papers, there are two dichotomies: stocks, aka equity; bonds, aka debt. This right here stipulates the debtor, meaning a debt has to exist, and stipulates the secured party, meaning the creditor has to exist, that is now securing the collateral in his or her capacity as a substitute for performance. That itself is a demonstration of bond in of itself. I hope you realize that the fact that a collateral exists here itself is the bond, because the debtor has some debt. Otherwise, the title of the first one whose name is required to be placed here would not be a debtor. And the secured party sometimes can be, but usually is the creditor, who is secured in that contract by taking something as a collateral. This is creating the bond. Do you know all those bonds you get from online websites, notary bonds, so and so? They do UCC financing statements in all of them before they give it to you. The time period, say January 1st, 2025, you go on a website online, you get the bond, you pay for it. Between the time period that they contact you and say, yes, it's ready, and they email you those PDF bonds, they've done a UCC on it. You know how I know this? I used to be an administrator in those bond companies. One of those popular ones everyone go to online, we used to, as protocols, always do UCC1 financing statement on all bonds that we issue anyone that come and purchase premiums from us. So now you're taking someone's bond that already has a separate UCC and you're retroactively putting in something that you want to be the first in line in. Why? Just for the quick gratification of just filing it now. But in the future, you're just opening yourself to take over. The first time I heard someone saying, well, I'm having trouble filing something in a county, and I was told to go get a bond and then attach it to it because the employees in the counties find it easier and more comfortable doing it that way if you don't add a real property to it, like a PIN number and things like that. Instead of you taking 2, 3, 4, 5 months finding the proper county to get it done, because the art of war tells you to attack it more than one place at a time. But you do a pincer attack. In commerce, it's a battle. If one doesn't work, don't get discouraged and just try to find the next comfortable gratification for it, because usually those gratification comes back and hurt you. So when I heard that at first, I didn't pay much attention to it, but I just told the one who asked me that question, look, there's more to it, but if that's what you think would work for you, go ahead and do it. But I don't do it that way, and I haven't done it that way. Then today, someone else asked me that same question, and I'm realizing this might be another thing where people will go into in the future without realizing how it would affect them. Unless, of course, most people just plan on just going through the motion of filing some forms and, calling it a day because, well, to them getting a file stamped copy of something is the same thing as accomplishing the goal. If that's where you are in your stage of development, exercise your own liberty of conscience. But in the process of exercising your discretion and liberty of conscience, do it in a manner that makes you realize that why do it later when you can do it now? Why fix it later when you can fix it now? Because if this exists and you take that secondary bond, that's a third party bond, and you attach it to this just for the sake of comfort of being able to just quickly file it, everything attached to that express trust and its interests, you've just given someone the key to it, whether you realize it or not. Because everything on this thing called financing statement that you attach to it, especially the collateral section, is considered something called a financing agreement. And who else is better to go to than NASDAQ, one of the platforms used when it comes to financing agreements, the trading of bonds and stocks, debt and equity. They tell you financing agreement, which is anything that you put here, right here in this collateral, that's what qualifies the collateral, the agreement. A financing agreement in context of project financing, meaning particular to using it as a funding mechanism, which is exactly what this is. The document which provides the project financing and sponsor support for the project is defined in a project contract. So now you see that the moment you put an external bond from some company, just so it's easy for you to file this in the face of the employee in the county. The moment you put that, attach it to this, they consider it a financing agreement, and they consider that bond as the one that's sponsoring this entire form. That's the reason why your own bond has to be attached to this in form of a promissory note, not some foreign bond. The question you ought to ask is, why am I even using that bond besides the comfort of what someone else wants to see? You just comforted someone else based on what they want to see. But does that hinder your ability to actually accomplish the intent of you even filing this? Forget the money you spent on filing it. Forget the time you spent traveling or emailing it. Think of the objective nature of what you intend to accomplish with this. So now you bring in someone else's agreement into yours, and they're looking at that bond that you're adding to this as the financing agreement. And when push comes to shove, there'll now be a dispute as to whose agreement is superior when they now do a takeover on this right here. And thus they evoke several liability under contract law because you voluntarily added them into your contract. They will do a takeover privately and publicly. And they will rub it in your face that whole thing you want to do a court test and control test with your foreign trustee and all that stuff would not matter because you voluntarily pierced it. And keep in mind, even when you want to amend it and remove it, before they issue that bond, they've already done a UCC 1 financing statement. In other words, that bond that you're putting here as an attachment so you can file your financing statement, there's another financing statement that preempts that. So you can't claim first in time, first in line. There's another financing statement that preempts that. So you can't claim first in time, first in line. What allows you to claim first in time, first in line is the bond of the promissory note that you attach to this based on your private contract with your express trust. You just killed that by bringing someone else's financing statement bond into it. People, think for your own good. And consequently, that bond company, whatever bond company you use online to add to this so that you can easily file it, they're considered something called financing corporation because this is a financing statement. And NASDAQ Glossary of Financial Dictionary tells you a financing corporation, a government agency chartered in 1987 to bail out the Federal Savings and Loan Insurance Company by issuing bonds. Which brings me to this. So every bond you have a third-party company issue you, you're just rendering your power to those entities. That same quote-unquote government you say you want to be free from, you're voluntarily handing yourself to them. Do not intermix things. Just do it right. That's the reason why I always emphasize, even if it doesn't make you feel comfortable, get it done nonetheless. And where one constantly keeps seeking instant gratification, while that instant gratification might pay off now, somewhere along the line it would defeat your purpose based on your voluntary act. Put that into consideration. When it comes to you taking an external bond from a bond company and adding it into your UCC financing statement just for the comfort of you being able to just file it as quick as possible. Till next time, take care. Best of luck.